Welcome to Lights Camera Remake, where we try to determine whether Hollywood has truly run out of ideas. And sometimes you need an Antarctic research station to run into a shape-shifting alien more than once. My co-host Erica Strout has today off, but she will return next week with her pick. Today I have with me Tricia Buerke, a director who is currently raising funds for her short horror film, Should I Claim I Still Have Mind Powers? Trisha, tell me a little bit about your experience as a director and why you might have chosen this film.
So first off, gotta say, very excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. um, a little bit about my experience. I have none. So, I am an actress. I got my college degree in theater and then started doing film, and then COVID hit and all of that fun stuff. So I've always been on the other side of the camera. I have directed some plays before, but this is my first film that I'm directing, and I'm very excited. It's very chaotic and it matches just who I am as a person chaotically, if that makes sense. And then my team is very like, all right, let's go. The reason why I chose these films, one, can I say the name of the film yet?
Yeah, you could say it now.
Okay. I love John Carpenter's The Thing, love it to death. And honestly, when I told you about like these films, I thought that maybe should have clarified, but I thought that we were going to do John Carpenter's The Thing and then the new one.
Yes, I had a feeling.
So when you said John Carpenter and the other one, I was like, oh, well, I've never actually seen The Thing from Another World. So um, overall, I just love John Carpenter's film, but that's also like where a lot of inspiration for our movie came from was John Carpenter and those kinds of things. So yeah, that's kind of why. Losing control is another thing.
Well, since we're talking about this tying into your movie, what is your movie about?
Imagine waking up and discovering your mind holds powers beyond comprehension. Welcome to the surreal journey of Should I Claim I Still Have Mind Powers?
This is a darkly comical, surreal story that follows an isolated office worker who stumbles upon some newfound telekinetic abilities.
What starts off as harmless mischief quickly spirals into mystery, madness, and something far more dangerous.
It's equal parts satire, suspense, and psychological horror, and it's all told through a visually rich, modern lens.
So it is about an isolated office worker who like wakes up one day and suddenly realizes that they have telekinetic abilities, and then they kind of go on a chaotic pranking spree. It's funny, but it's really weird and like really disoriented. It takes a lot of inspiration from Uzumaki and Junji Ito, the horror manga creator. I'm a huge fan of his work, and so are the rest of my team. So like watching and reading through spirals more recently, that's kind of where we got the inspiration for, oh, let's kind of go through like what the Japanese act structure is like instead of the American act structure. So it's like the 4 act versus the 3 act. So yeah, that's kind of where it came from. I'm not going to spoil it too much more.
Since we're on the subject, do
Yeah,
you have really strong feelings about the new Uzumaki animation that came out?
the one on Max.
Yeah, the one on Max.
Um, Compared to the book, I say it matched pretty evenly, especially with the art style, specifically because I know that Junji Ito did the animation for it, or at least the drawing for it. It didn't scare me as much, if that makes sense. Or it didn't, I mean, it made me uncomfortable, but like reading it was worse for me. I'm also just a big reader in general.
Mm.
Like seeing on the panels the things happening just made me more unsettled than seeing it on the screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I could
I
see you
still
kind of
liked
get
it.
like
Yeah.
wrapped up in that imagery, and it's like a car
Mhm.
accident. You can't look away.
Yeah.
I always think of the snail's kid and the man who curls himself up in that thing, that box or whatever.
That
I
one,
can't
and
get it
then
out of my head.
the mosquito pregnant ladies. Oh, oh my God.
That was some very visceral horror, but it seems like with your movie, you're
Yes.
incorporating a little comedy. Do you count your film as a horror comedy, or is it just that there's comedic elements in it?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say the first part is probably more horror comedy. We're just trying to capture, like, I mean, this is what films do anyway, is capture real life, but like we're trying to capture the energy of our actors, which we have a lot of goofballs.
I love it.
Just a bunch of goofballs. Um, but it's not like intended to be like slapstick comedy.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
There's just some things where you're like, that's very childish and it's kind of funny.
I love it.
So I would say more thriller, horror, slice of life, maybe, and then add comedy on top of that. It's just a bunch. It's just a big old cluster of weird stuff.
So here we are talking about The Thing. I think it's funny that I surprised you with talking about the original. Looking back, I was thinking about also doing the newer one that I think came out in 2011.
I've never seen it, so
I often think of it as a remake, but it's actually a prequel, you know? Okay, so I'll tell you this, and I'll tell my faithful listeners, I watched it when it came out, and I hated it. I thought the effects were terrible. It's like, you can't compare it to the John Carpenter movie. I watched it years later, and I liked it a lot better. It's one of those kind of movies for me.
Yeah. Huh.
So you kind of have to turn your brain off for the CGI because, like, the digital effects kind of dampen it a little bit. But it ended up being a really good tie-in. It tells you the story of what happened at the Norwegian research station before the dog runs away and the helicopter is chasing it. So that movie ends with the beginning of the John Carpenter film.
Oh, yeah.
It was kind of brilliantly done, I've got to say. I did hate it the first time I saw it, but, you know, we all have our moments, so yeah.
I feel that way about some Alien movies, just gotta say.
Yeah, I'm trying to make my way through all the Alien movies, and I got through the third one, and so far, yeah, I could see where the downgrade starts.
Yeah.
The Thing was originally a 1938 novella called Who Goes There by John Campbell Jr. It was published in Astounding Science Fiction magazine, and it's basically the same story. I'm kind of interested to read it now. It was literally about a parasitic alien life form that assimilated and imitated other forms of life, all taking place at an American research station in the Antarctic. What's funny is the first film adaptation kind of divorces itself from half of that plot, it seems.
It really did.
Yeah, it's weird to see that because I have seen this one before. I haven't seen it for years, but it is a horror movie from the 50s, so it's kind of precious. But yeah, it's a lot. So would you like to take it away and start talking about The Thing from Another World?
Absolutely. That was a horrible accent. That's one thing I have not gotten down is any sort of accent whatsoever. They're always like, oh, do a British accent, do a Scottish accent, like X, Y, and Z. And I'm always like, it might sound like a pirate eventually. Like, it doesn't ever stay the same.
Or it goes from like British to Australian to pirate somehow, seamlessly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I offend so many people. I don't mean to.
Oh, that's hilarious. This is why I like to hide behind the camera. You guys put yourselves out there, and I can just go, ha ha, right behind you. Just kidding, I won't do that to you. So let's talk about The Thing from Another World from 1951.
Yeah, I'm gonna botch probably a lot of these names, to be completely honest. But it was directed by Christian Nibby.
Nibby?
And Howard Hanks. It was written by Charles Lederer. Howard Hanks. I told you, I'm gonna mess it up.
I am loving every bit of
and
this.
then Ben Hecht with John W. Campbell Jr., which is the novella writer. It stars Margaret Sheridan, Kenneth Tobey, Robert Coinwright, James Arness.
Yeah, James Arness. He was famously Marshal Matt Dillon in Gunsmoke, which is hilarious that he's the monster in the movie.
Yeah, okay.
He's the very tall man.
Very tall. Are we going through the budget and the ratings, or is that... Okay.
I'm going to make you do the synopsis.
Sure.
But I will cover the budget and stuff like that. So the budget for this movie, it's $1,600,000. However, I couldn't actually find the box office for this, so I have no idea. Ratings on IMDb, it's a 7 out of 10. On Rotten Tomatoes, it's an 87% tomato meter and a 73% popcorn meter.
Okay. All right. So we'll do mine just so you can see how my brain works.
Yay!
So it opens in Anchorage, Alaska, and Scotty, a reporter, is looking for a news story. He speaks with 3 military men playing poker, one of which is Captain Henry. These military men are jonesing for the company of a woman. That is
no.
literally all they talk about is
Oh my.
wanting women.
I forgot about that. That's uncomfortable.
So then they get a message from a Dr. Carrington about a crashed aircraft. The weather reports forewarns of bad weather heading their way, forewarning the party is going to become stranded at the NP research station. And then the next scene sees the team flying to the NP research station with a fleet of Huskies. Tex radios the aircraft and walks them to the station manually due to the interference messing with all of the equipment in the area. They basically land with no incident, which I'm always a little bit upset when there's not like any
The drama.
the drama. Another thing that I like said right away without actually watching anything happening after it, I just screamed out, "What about the dogs? They just left them in the airplane?"
Oh, right. That's what I would be tracking for sure.
There's just so many dogs in there. So Dr. Chapman greets the team and informs them that there's been quite the argument about what the research team has recovered. Captain Hendry and Carrington's secretary, Nicholson, or Nikki, they have some history, and she played a trick on him before she left for the MP research station. I didn't really get the joke or what it was supposed to be about, but it was something about his legs.
Oh, great.
I don't know. Making fun of his legs.
Sounds ableist.
Yep. It's the 50s.
I have to remind myself whenever we cover an old movie, it's like, well, it's a product of its time.
Mm-hmm. Like watching White Christmas.
Anything from this era, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Carrington is conducting an experiment as Hendry walks into the testing room. Something large, about 20,000 tons of steel, is causing the interference near the NP. It's either a meteor or something else. The research team then takes off 50 miles towards the cause of the disturbance, accompanied by Hendry's team and the dogs. Hooray! Such good doggos.
I'm glad they're okay. So far.
Yeah.
I said so far. I know how this goes.
So far. The plane's Geiger counter starts picking up activity as they reach the site of the disturbance, and using the dog sled, snowshoes, and skis, the team hikes to the site of the disturbance. I made a note very clearly to myself. Some of them have snowshoes, some of them are wearing skis, and then there's a majority of them that aren't wearing anything.
Oh, great. Yeah,
like they're just wearing shoes.
The script supervisor must have been off that day.
So Scotty, the news reporter, asked if the airplane's engine can melt the amount of ice the disturbance had melted. There's like this big circle. And he's informed that a US jet can warm a 50-story office building.
Mm.
The men then spread out to find the shape of the crash's disturbance and like what's actually underneath the now frozen ice. And they stand in a perfect circle that is used in the John Carpenter's The Thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you're like outlining the actual flying saucer.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was so cool. From it being like, I was like, how are they going to show like a flying saucer? But just seeing all of those men like with their arms outstretched, like, ooh, spooky.
They got the visual without having to build a giant spaceship, which honestly, props for that.
Yeah, smart. Mm-hmm. I would have been like, all right, we're going miniature. Let's.
Absolutely. Matte paintings all the way.
Yeah, exactly. So they kind of discern that the metal sticking out of the ice is unlike any metal they've ever seen. Hendry tries to silence Scotty and like prevent him from taking pictures or reporting what they had found, stuff like that. Another note that I made, sorry if I'm making too many notes.
No, this is great. This is great. This is exactly what Erica and I do. Then we add a few tangents and then we get lost for like 20 minutes.
Perfect. Hendry is like scraping the metal off of the tip of the ship that's coming out, but there's nothing to catch the metal and the wind blowing really, really hard. So I laughed for a while because he's just like scraping the metal and then the wind's like...
God, I love old movies.
Like, what? How are you going to catch that, my dude? So the cold weather starts to move in from the west and they scramble to like blast the disturbance from the ice. And they try to melt the ice with basically dynamite and blow it up.
Oh my.
And they're like, oh, darn.
Oops, we blew it up. We blew up the thing. That sounds like a great plan.
Exactly. So them blowing it up basically makes the ship's engine blow up. The Geiger counter still manages to get a reading, implying that there's something still under the ice. And under the ice, it's what looks like a man, over 8 feet long. And so they dig out and fly the 8-foot man back to the NP research station in a giant block of ice. And then on the way back, the military men joke about how the Air Force earlier that year had stated that they'll no longer be using manpower to investigate reports of flying saucers because they're misinterpreted from conventional objects and they could cause mass hysteria, or they're jokes. So they very pointedly put that in there, which I thought was funny because it was just a magazine, just like reading a magazine, like in the cockpit.
It's like weekly world news up in here.
Yeah, joke. So they then dragged a large chunk of ice into the research facility, and we see our first realistic depiction of the NP with nearly 4 feet of snow covering the entrance. When we first saw Scotty like walk in to meet Captain Henry, basically in Anchorage, there was no snow. I mean, there was snow, but like it wasn't like up to the door.
Yeah, consistency is not something this movie does, I think.
No. My partner and his mom used to live in Alaska for a while, and they were like, that's not realistic. And then when we saw like the snow up to the door, they were like, there we go. And so you have to like slide down to get into your house. And that's what they do with the giant chunk of frozen ice. And then in an attempt to keep it frozen, Henry commands one of his men to break the window in the room with the ice block, which I just went, why wouldn't you think about that before you brought it inside?
You can't open a window. You can't like, why we gotta break windows up in here?
Smash it. But
yeah,
the drama, it's the movie. I suppose. So in the other room, the scientists basically weigh the pros and cons of why they should thaw the man out from the ice. And it's like common themes in like future alien movies are kind of floated. The organisms have diseases that human can't fight, or we would be able to not communicate with them, basically. And then Tex informs the group that the storm is interfering with radio signals going in and out. Later, Henry and one of his men comment on the day, and Henry calls the scientists 9-year-olds, which I thought was very funny and very childish, and I liked it a lot.
Love it.
And then Sergeant Bob informs Henry that he feels uneasy about one of the men guarding the man in the ice. And Bob advises that they shift guards from every 4 hours to 2 hours to just kind of keep them rotating and not sitting there for too long. So Henry agrees. He says he'll take over for Bob at 2 a.m. And then we kind of go into this like little subplot of Henry and Nikki, and they share a drink. And there's something that happens there where he's just like sitting backwards on a chair with his hands tied behind his back, and she's like feeding him liquor, basically.
Okie dokie. That's a choice.
Again, I didn't really catch their relationship. Okay, it's a good little plot, what have you, but I didn't catch all of the like, oh, this happened last time. The joke about the legs. Why is he tied up in a chair? Like, I didn't like really get that all that much, but
look, Tricia, between two consenting adults, sure.
In Antarctica, do what you want to do, girlfriend.
But they're bored.
Basically, they decide to start over again, forgetting their past relationship and transgressions, all of that fun stuff. So then the guard changes. It's presumably 10 p.m. The watch guard, he gets freaked out and he covers the ice block with what we believe is an electric blanket, which was forewarned by Bob a few scenes prior.
Of course.
And the electric blanket is plugged in and it's on.
All these things they had to do to line up for this, the ultimate gaffe.
But this to happen. But then the kicker is he doesn't turn around for the amount of time it takes for that ice block to melt.
Oh my god.
So it's just like dripping. Like you're in a room alone. You think you wouldn't hear that?
Oh my god. Yeah. And it's in a giant ice block. Like that would take time to melt, but okay, buddy, you're really that inept.
Anyway, so the thing basically approaches the guard after it melts, and then he escapes after firing several shots at it. Mm-hmm. He then runs into the rest of the men in the mess hall, spills his guts, and then Henry takes all of the armed military men to the room to now see the fully thawed out ice, and you see the imprint of where the thing was and the empty ice, giving us the image that's kind of seen in the John Carpenter version again. And then, this makes me sad. Looking out the window, they then see the thing attacking and trying to eat the dogs.
Oh, that's risque for a 1950s thing.
Mm-hmm. I will say, as somebody who loves animals, you can see that it is very clearly a dummy.
Okay.
Thrown around.
Yeah.
So that's
Sometimes that's a good thing.
Yeah, sometimes. In that case, yes. So several of them pursue with weapons. The thing escapes moments before they get to it. And then examining the dog that had died, gotten attacked, they find an alien hand under one of the dogs.
Ooh.
So they bring it inside, and then the whole station is like, oh my God, a hand. And we basically hear that the hands are really sharp. They have like points on them. They look like rose thorns, basically. And the arm has no blood, no known animal tissue. It's alien. And then Carrington surmises that the alien can't die, and that explains why the shots that were fired had no effect. And then they examine the tissue, and the alien tissue is kind of akin to planets found on the Earth. And then the news reporter Scotty basically calls it a super carrot.
See, that's when you lose me, is when you call your big bad super carrot. I'm sorry.
Carrot?
What? It's bad enough he's a plant, but okay, all right. Super carrot. That's
Super carrot.
Funny.
So that lost me too. I was like,
That's funny.
okay. Why not like a super potato, or like,
How about a cabbage?
how about a cabbage?
Like, he's basically the Jolly Green Giant.
Is that where we got the Jolly Green Giant from?
I don't know, but that's my new headcanon.
Yes. So Scotty all but calls Carrington crazy for suggesting intelligent life could have evolved from plants. And then immediately after that, another scientist in the room starts listing off a series of intelligent plants that are on Earth, which is very funny. So Carrington continues to marvel at the thing, calling it superior, basically saying its mind is unburdened with emotional or sexual reproduction. Then the thing's hand starts moving. So everybody's like, oh God, what? Henry and his men go into the research station to track down the thing using a Geiger counter to follow it.
Okay, it's a radioactive plant.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just trying to make sure I'm keeping up. It's been a while since I've seen this one.
Basically, Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh, yeah, one of my favorites.
So the counter is misled by a room that's just like filled with uranium samples, and that's gonna ultimately cause problems later, but whatever. And then we see Carrington see something when they're in the greenhouse facility, and he basically keeps whatever it is to himself and his other scientists. And then Henry and the team leave, but he stays. And then they basically surmise that the thing has entered the compound via the greenhouse's exterior back door. And then they're like looking around, and they find this like plant sap that has been shown when they were looking at the hand on this like storage container unit thing. And then they find another dead dog.
Yikes,
Yeah.
don't kill the dog.
No.
Why? Why, people?
Blood. They need it. So Carrington basically like refuses to tell Henry that the thing is in there, and he thinks that he can ultimately communicate with it. So then going over to Henry, Bob, and then a third man, I don't know what his name was, they are basically scouting the area outside. Tex brings in a telegram from General Fogarty saying basically he wants to know more about the thing. And then a scientist stumbles into the mess hall with just slashes all over his body, and he actually ran into the thing in the greenhouse. So 2 men are now confirmed dead at this point. And then Henry takes a team to the greenhouse. The team splits up. One goes to the generator room, and another directly into the greenhouse to try to trap it. And then opening the door, the thing nearly punches Henry's head off, which is, again, very funny to me.
It's a strong super carrot.
Strong super carrot who eats blood. And its previously severed hand has like grown back. And so they're all like, oh, good God. They barricade the greenhouse door shut. Henry confronts Carrington about the dead dog that he found there earlier. And then Henry confines in Carrington and his accomplices. So he confines Carrington and the accomplices to their quarter, and then Bob keeps guard. The back door to the greenhouse is barricaded with 20 oil cans of oil, vice versa, whatever.
Sounds like a recipe for a party. I don't know.
100%. I literally wrote, surely that won't cause any fires later, ...
Surely this won't be used in a climactic explosion or something.
Surely. So Carrington and his scientific staff are confined to the testing room. Carrington convinces his colleagues that only science will defeat the creature, and weapons are basically powerless against it. And then Nikki reads Carrington's notes, revealing that he took seeds that were in the severed thing's hand and planted them in soil, and has been watering them with plasma from the station's blood bank.
Yeah, see, we should never trust a scientist in a movie who's like, this creature is so superior to us. And also, weapons will never work against it. Never mind the plants, I'm growing this from this thing over here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I don't trust this man.
Mm-hmm. Nope, me neither. Very good actor, though. After a few hours, the seeds had sprouted into a crap ton of flowers, and they basically take a stethoscope and hear the wails of a newborn child, is how they describe it from these
Ooh.
flowers. They're like breathing. And the other scientists, after seeing this, they try to convince Carrington that the thing poses a massive threat to the planet. And they surmise that the thing has been growing more flowers with the dead dog's blood in the greenhouse. All of that fun stuff. And then Carrington responds with, "There's no enemies in science, only phenomena to study."
Okay, buddy, settle down.
And then Henry basically corners Nikki and is like, "Hey, I brought a lot of plasma here. Where is all of, like, where is it?"
Ooh.
Oh, he specifically says, like, why isn't it being used on the scientist that was attacked? Because he's not getting it. He's just getting blood transfusions.
Right.
And Nikki allows Henry to read Carrington's notes, basically explaining what's happening. And so then Henry walks in on Carrington's experiment, and Chapman ultimately sides with Henry and tries to shut down Carrington's experiment. But then Tex comes in and brings in a message from General Fogarty saying to keep the thing alive and well and away from danger until he arrives when the weather is better. Scotty and Nikki come up with a way to kill the thing, mostly with fire. The Geiger counter starts ticking, telling the survivors that the thing has left the previously barricaded greenhouse. And then the thing enters the barracks. And then Henry and his team douse it in oil and light it on fire, but continuously throw oil at it.
Kill it with fire. Kill it more with fire.
Which it just is an insane scene to watch. And then it obviously affects it, and it dives through the window and it runs out into the night. And then they plan to set up multiple electricity traps, which would burn hotter than kerosene and hopefully kill it quicker. But then they discovered that the heat has been turned off in the research facility and they are not getting any oil, and the thing is basically trying to freeze them out. So they set up this like electric fly trap kind of a thing. And then Tex relays a message from General Fogarty again saying, do everything to keep your party alive, but take no steps against your prisoner. And then Carrington basically takes that as a chance to rip into Henry, saying that he's depriving humanity of the greatest scientific find of our species.
Sure thing, buddy.
Yada, yada, yada.
There's always some scientists in these movies. It's like, we need this for scientific research right before it kills everybody,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, including the scientist. So then Bob advises to turn off the lights and to use somebody as bait so the thing doesn't see the fly trap thing. And then Henry and his team see the thing coming at him. And then all of a sudden, the electricity is off. And who did it? Carrington. So he disarmed the trap.
God, Carrington, get it together.
So my favorite part is everybody runs away from the thing. And instead of the thing running after them, it waits. It has the decency to wait until they turn on the electricity, which none of those men needed to be in that room for because they just took away Carrington's gun.
Now that is a gentleman. He's waiting his turn. He's letting everyone else have their chance first to run.
He's like,
he's like 5-second rule. I don't know.
He's like, hey, if they get moving more, I get more calories out of their blood. Like,
okay, all right, maybe there's an ulterior motive to it, but I'm just saying,
exactly.
like, they were built different in the 50s.
True. So then they reactivate the electricity, but Carrington runs out and tries to speak to the thing, and it listens before bashing Carrington over the head and making him fly across the room. And then the thing basically just walks into their trap after like 45 seconds.
Oh my god, what a de-escalation.
I mean, it was very Frankenstein-esque, like the electricity coming and stuff like that. It melts and smolders. And then a note that put in here, does it turn into a carrot now?
It's just a regular carrot.
It's just a regular carrot now. But then after all of that, Scotty is finally allowed to take a photo of the thing, and he just faints instead.
Oh, Scotty, come on. Journalistic integrity.
So we don't get to see what the melted thing looks like. But then the surviving members reconvene in the radio room, and Henry has burned all of Carrington's experiments and the plants that the thing had planted in the greenhouse. And then Scotty gets on the radio, tells the reporters in Anchorage about the battle that just happened there. Carrington did not die. He just suffered major wounds, and they gave him props for being a survivor of battle, which is very generous. And then the movie ends with Scotty saying, "Keep watching the skies."
So it's like a classic sci-fi movie ending where it's like, good thing the aliens didn't invade, but what if they do?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's
Yeah.
like the end, ... question
Mhm.
mark. You know, classic.
And then the "watch the skies, keep watching the skies," that's like a really popular
Yeah.
phrase that people will use. And at the time, it was also used for like nuclear war. I don't know if propaganda is the right word, but like watch the skies for like bombs.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like your typical cautionary tale. It's definitely
Mhm.
got major Frankenstein homage to it, except the
Mhm.
monster is truly a monster and not just
Mhm.
misunderstood.
Exactly. Yep. And I
Yeah.
honestly, going into it and not only seeing the John Carpenter the thing, I was not expecting it to be a plant,
Super carrot.
a super carrot.
So, what do you take out of this movie after seeing it for the first time?
It was pretty good.
Okay.
For a 50s movie, I thought it was pretty good. For a horror's 50s movie, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, there's parts that just make you like,
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
roll your eyes. But I thought the scientists were pretty, specifically Carrington was very convincing for that time period. I will say though, the Geiger counter kind of ticked me off because if they had that Geiger counter right where the spaceship was,
Right.
they would have like gotten radiation point. Like they would have been dead.
Right. Yeah, you've got other problems. That's a slow death.
Exactly. So there's some things that I'm like,
They needed a way to track the monster, and so they added in the Geiger counter thing, which is fine, I guess, but we just did the Godzilla episode, and they also, like, there's a lot of Geiger counter stuff in that too. And Erica made a good point. She said, aren't these people all going to get radiation poisoning?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, it is only going for realism to a point. I don't think they want to be a complete downer.
Oh, goodness gracious. This isn't Chernobyl. Like, calm down. This is Godzilla.
So yeah, thank you so much for going through the synopsis that reminded me of everything that happened in the movie because it has been a few years. And also it just gives me an appreciation for old sci-fi. You know, again, it's like so precious.
And to see like the original story too, like, I mean, granted, it was taken from the novella, but like to see what they made out of it back then is
Yeah.
just very entertaining, but also
Yeah.
like, oh, okay. Good for you.
So yeah, it's also neat to see like what elements retained from into the version in 1982 and what elements they decided, you know, we need to change this up, which I'm glad they made the monsters so much more menacing and hard to pin down in the John Carpenter one because then you have so many more issues of trust and suspicion.
Oh god, yeah. Yep.
So, I guess on that note, we're going to go right into John Carpenter's The Thing.
Insert scary music.
Ooh. I'm really glad you chose this. This is a movie I've seen with my dad. I saw it when I was too young to be watching this kind of horror.
Uh-oh.
And I still have an appreciation for it while I was hiding under the covers.
You're like peeking through your hands, like, I don't want to watch.
I was, yeah. I was like, that's so scary, but the monster's really cool too. I don't know.
Good.
So, The Thing, 1982, directed by John Carpenter, written by Bill Lancaster, obviously based on the John Campbell Jr. novella. It stars Kurt Russell as, basically Kurt Russell, Wilford Brimley, and Keith David, who has a great voice. This movie was nominated for 5 awards. I didn't see it winning anything, which I'm very surprised. I thought it would have won for special effects.
Yeah.
I guess it didn't. It did get nominated for a Razzie for Worst Musical Score by Ennio Morricone.
That's so sad.
I mean, after rewatching the movie this week, I was like, the score is fine.
Yeah.
Budget was $15 million, which is amazing that they did all that in $15 million. Like, that's unheard of today. This movie easily would have been like 100 to no. It would have been like a $300 million movie today.
I could have made it with 1,000.
I know, right? Give us a chance. We could do this. So, $15 million budget. US and Canada opening weekend was $3 million. That doesn't sound as good as it could be.
Yeah.
But gross worldwide was $20 million, so it made the budget, but only like just over it.
Okay.
I mean, it still made $5 million over budget, but I think this is a movie that gained more popularity as it was being replayed on TV and as more people learned about it.
Yeah.
It's like one of those word of mouth ones, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Ratings, IMDb, it's an 8.2 out of 10, which is very respectable. Rotten Tomatoes, 85% tomato meter, 92% popcorn meter. Not surprised that the audience is always liking these movies more than the critics. Yeah. I kept the synopsis kind of short on this one because I figured most people are going to have seen this one, but the other reason is because I really wanted to go into detail on the special effects.
Yeah.
So that's where I wanted to put my time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, yeah, I'm learning as I edit these episodes that sometimes I get too detailed on my synopsis, and that's why I went really short this time.
I like those, though. I like when people go really detailed, because then you're like...
Yeah, sometimes you forget whole scenes, so sometimes that's like the pluses and minuses to having a long synopsis. But if I miss anything important that you want to come back to, just let me know. All right, into it now. At a U.S. research station in winter 1982, researchers are surprised by a Norwegian helicopter that enters the area, shooting at a dog that is running from them. I know. I immediately felt bad for the dog, even though I know the dog is bad.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, the poor puppy! The dog seeks shelter with the U.S. researchers, and the Norwegians hurriedly land and try to shoot the dog, accidentally shooting one of the other men. Then they accidentally blow themselves up and their helicopter with a grenade.
I will never not snort laugh at that point in time. So good.
If the Norwegians spoke English and the English people understood Norwegian, they would have known what was going to happen. So yeah, the movie would have ended prematurely, but that's how it goes. So the US team, they try to call for help. They try to report, they've got some dead bodies on their hand.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also got a helicopter that crashed. They're not even worried about the dog. The dog's just chilling in the base. But they can't reach outside for help. It's been weeks, and all communication has been cut off. It's really due to the weather or maybe the time of year. Communications are not very good. So instead, since they can't report it, they decide to go investigate at the Norwegian base. And when they show up, this is our first real moments of horror. We see the crew of the Norwegian base all murdered or just dead, or some of them look like they committed suicide. Some of them are just mutilated. And they're like, our guys coming here are like, what the hell happened here? I really wish they'd gotten the idea that, maybe something was amiss, but they're just sort of like, that's weird. Anyway.
Yeah, they're like, this is normal. Did you see the Russian base? They did the same thing. Like,
right. Yeah, really. But yeah, I think they take some notes from the base or something. They get some kind of evidence from the base. But what they find outside is the worst part. Like, they should have known there was something wrong here. They find a mutilated corpse outside, and it's that classic horror where it's like a face melting into another face. There's like limbs sticking up, all grotesque, and it's definitely got extra fingers on one hand. I definitely counted 6 at one point.
yeah.
They should have noticed that there was something really wrong, but they're like, again, that's weird. Let's bring it back to our base.
Let's go look at it. Inside.
This is also the base where they find like the giant ice cube right where the monster came out of originally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they found the block of ice where the monster that the Norwegians dug up came out. So basically this is piggybacking off the original movie's plot, except instead of the original movie where it was the Americans who discovered it, it's the Norwegians. And we need that little failure to communicate to keep the movie going.
Yeah, exactly.
So of course they bring this horrible corpse back to their base to do an autopsy. I'm like, I would not get near this thing with a scalpel. I would barely get near it with a flamethrower. I don't know, guys. Choices were made.
What is that Grinch song? Wouldn't touch it with a 30-foot-and-a-half-foot pole, or whatever it's called. 30-and-a-half-foot pole.
Exactly. I am noping the hell out of there before everything's broken down and we can't escape. Anyway, I know better because I'm the audience, right? I've seen this movie before. Well, the dog is integrated into the same cage as the other dogs, and as soon as the humans leave, it transforms into a horrible creature of extra teeth and whipping tentacles and maybe a bonus head or two. And it starts taking over several other dogs. And this is a really traumatic scene, especially when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I couldn't separate the unreality and the reality of it. I just thought those dogs are being hurt. Like, you can hear them whimpering and stuff. It's very visceral.
Yeah.
A couple of them escape initially, but like you see a couple of them being taken over, and it's a lot. And just like this is where you see these special effects really shining. It's every piece of it moves and articulates, and you feel threatened when you're looking at this thing. Even me sitting on my couch.
You're like, who's behind me?
I know. I squeezed my dog, like, protect me, small dog. And she's like, I'm a Shih Tzu. I ain't doing shit.
I'm a Shih Tzu.
But yeah, so it mutates, and normally in a lot of movies, no one will be aware of what's going on for a while, but luckily one fellow, I think his name is Clark, he's like the unofficial keeper of the dogs.
Clark?
He goes to investigate why the dogs are howling, and poor man. He sees the thing literally growing and mutating and growing claws and spearing the dogs and bringing them into itself. He's just like, what? And the other researchers come and see it, and they call for the one fella to get the flamethrower, and they set it on fire before it could escape, because it does try to escape. It breaks through the ceiling, and it's about to lift itself out of there, and that's when they realize they're dealing with something that's not normal, at least the doctor does.
That's when.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't realize this before, but we put all the corpses in a storage room or something, and we're like, cool. Nothing's ever dead in this movie, by the way. Unless you're human. You can die if you're human or a dog. But if you're an alien, you do not die. You just, you wait your chance to come back. They finally deduce that they're dealing with an alien life form that takes over and then becomes other creatures. Its ultimate goal is to become human. If it escapes to civilization, it'll take over all of humanity. And I think they said it would take about 27,000 hours. So this is where the crux of the whole story comes from, is once they realize the thing can become people, and it does start doing this one at a time, assimilating and taking over people, they have to start figuring out how to test for who's human or not. That's when all their camaraderie, all their teamwork breaks down, because they don't know who's going to be it. And this is like a more common trope, I'd say. Now you see a lot more, but like in this movie, it's so palpable. It's so palpable. And you feel like nothing and no one is to be trusted. We even have our Kurt Russell character. He's suspected of being the thing. And and he's holding them all at dynamite point. And he's basically, I'm not it. He's like, I'm not it. But I don't trust you guys either. There's a whole standoff, and they figure out how to test the blood, right? They heat up a wire off the flamethrower's flame, and they take blood samples from everybody into a petri dish. And this is such a great scene, because it goes on long enough that you start to feel a little relaxed until you get to like the second to last guy, and then oh my god, the blood just jumps out of there and screams.
Like, oh, good god!
I jumped too. I jumped out of my skin. I've seen this, and I forgot who the guy was, but I'm like, I know it's coming. That's how good this movie was. Like, I was still on the edge of my seat, and I didn't remember who it was, but I remembered it was gonna be somebody, and then the guy in this thing starts gyrating and melting and going all over the place. And
that is an interesting choice of words, gyrating.
Yeah, he was gyrating.
He was.
He kind of bounced. And he takes a couple people out with him. Yeah, it's just like the rest of the movie is them being picked off one after another. Because again, like, so trust is broken down. It's a great story for that. And also, I watched to the end, this time watching it. And also, I watched this to the end, trying to figure out what the true ending is. There's a fan theory. Because, we have two characters that survive to the end. Spoilers, obviously. Spoilers the podcast. So two characters that survive to the end. It's Kurt Russell's character, McCready, and Child, which I believe he's played by Keith David, flamethrower guy. And they're both just sitting there at the end with the base all blown up around them. It's the only way they could get rid of this horrible monster is blow up the entire base. And they know they're never going to get out. The helicopter's been destroyed, the tractor's destroyed, they have no communications, they're going to freeze to death. But they're both sitting there, and they don't know if the either person is the alien or not. And there's a fan theory that you can tell who it is. Like, there's clues throughout the movie that one of them is the thing.
Yeah. What are the clues?
The clues, I mean, like, it depends because John Carpenter won't give it away. But I think it depends on, like, I think it's intentionally ambiguous because everybody has a different opinion and it plays into those trust issues. So this thing I was reading once was about the end of the movie. They're both sitting out in the cold. It's freezing out. You can see Kurt Russell's breath really well. It's pluming out of him. You can see really big clouds of it. But you don't really see Child's breath that much. But I mean, it's still kind of there. I really looked for it this time. I'm like, if he has no breath coming from him, I think it's a good idea that maybe Childs is the alien because he ran off at some point. It was like, I was running after so-and-so. I saw him run into the storm and I got lost. I'm like,
Yeah.
sure, likely story. But since you can see his breath a little bit, it might just be an accident of filming. And I kind of think that's not enough of a clue. Supposedly, there's some clue in the middle of the movie somewhere. I couldn't pick it up this time. There is a theory out there somewhere about the whole climactic ending scene. Like, MacReady is with a couple of other guys who are getting picked off one by one. They're planning on destroying this creature together. And he's the one facing off with the thing in its final, like, mutated form. It's part dog, part person, part, I don't know, slime monster.
Mm-hmm.
And MacReady blows it up. So you're thinking, oh, MacReady, human, right? One of the fan theories is that he's the advanced version of the thing, the superior one, killing off an inferior copy. I mean, it's a decent fan theory. I just don't want to think that way. I want to think that he's human at the end, because we've been with him for most of it, but a lot of stuff does happen off screen.
Yeah.
So anything's possible. And that ambiguous ending means you can watch this movie different ways every time you see it.
I like to think that they just like freak each other out and like neither of them are the thing.
Right. I think that's valid. I think that's possible because you can't trust anyone. Like, why Child ran off into the storm. Oh, I saw the doctor or whatever. I thought I had to chase him because he's the monster and then I got lost. Okay, sure, that could have happened, or it could be a fib. Like Wilford Brimley going, I'm much better now. Meanwhile, he's building an alien ship under the shed. I love that. My dad and I used to quote that all the time, by the way. I'm much better now.
Much better now.
So yeah, I wanted to talk about, this is why I saved so much space for this.
Yeah, you're good.
I wanted to talk about the practical effects because that's just one of those things that it's so visceral. Like, you could reach out and touch this creature. It's not some soupy CGI nonsense because they didn't have soupy CGI nonsense then.
Mm-hmm.
And even the spaceship, when they show it, it's a matte painting. It's not physically there. But the matte painting looks good. And actually, they have their characters walk into the matte painting. So it looks like they're in the environment.
Love that.
It's very convincing. Anyway, Robert Bottin did the special effects on this. He was 22 when he started working on this film. He was a baby.
That's bonkers.
I mean, what was I doing at 22?
Just a tiny little lad.
Anyway, he worked 7 days a week for 56 weeks on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. He had so much work to do that he had to call in a friend to help and create one or more of the monsters. He called in Stan Winston, who is famous, of course. Also, Stan Winston created that first dog thing hybrid that attacks the other huskies. That was his creature.
Oh, okay.
So he really set the tone there. But great collaboration between the two artists because I don't see any noticeable differences between the different creatures, and I think it all blends and works very well together.
Yeah.
Just for fun's sake, I looked up some of the materials they used. It included things like mayo, strawberry jelly jam, foam latex, and KY jelly.
KY jelly is pretty popular, I will say. But the mayo and the
strawberry
I could see, but like the seeds I would be worried about.
Strawberry could probably go bad. I mean, maybe it's to make it chunky. Okay, so one of my favorite scenes, it's really great special effects. It's that scene where Dr. Cooper, played by Richard Dysart, is trying to resuscitate Norris, who, he collapsed earlier when MacReady was holding everyone at dynamite point. It looked like he had a heart attack or something, so, they're worried about him. And the doctor is using a defibrillator on his chest.
Oh,
She's doing the hand motions with her hand on the Zoom call.
that's just like a hell yeah moment. Like I wasn't even. It's so good.
So he's doing the defibrillating, and then on the last try, the chest and body opens up like a giant mouth and chomps on the doctor's arms. It's so good. And also, like, oh, it's such a gut reaction you have seeing that because nothing about you is expecting that to happen, which is why it's a great effect. You never. You think maybe it's gonna swipe at you with a claw or bite you with its mouth. You don't expect the chest to open up with new teeth and chop his arms off.
No.
But this thing, it continues to mutate. It lets its own head like slowly melt off. Oh, it's so gross. It slowly melts off the table with this horrible pained expression on its face, and then it turns into like a crab spider.
Yeah, that gave me the same reaction as the chest popper.
I had such nightmares about this thing as a kid. I was pretty sure it was running around the house at night when I was half asleep. This time I did notice something odd about the doctor. Like he loses both arms and both arms are just spraying out blood. The shot happened really fast and something seemed wrong about his face. But I didn't think about it twice. And I looked it up later. To make this look realistic, that the doctor lost both arms and is spraying blood everywhere, they replaced the actor with a double amputee actor who was wearing a realistic mask of Richard Dysart. And the scene happens so fast and is so shocking that the audience wouldn't notice it's a different person.
Wow.
It was a double amputee. Isn't that incredible? Like, this is amazing.
Just imagine like being that person and sitting in the audience, like watching this movie, be like, all right, here I come, right?
I think it's great. And they still do this in movies and shows today. Like, a lot of zombie movies use amputees because they naturally don't have an arm or a leg or something, and it helps with, that look.
Yeah, I know a lot of like Walking Dead zombies. I was watching like a interview of like the makeup artist there, and there was a lot of people who had like amputated limbs.
Yeah, give other actors a job. Let's do it. So yeah, I had to gush about the special effects because practical effects will always feel so much better than digital. I'm not about to crap on CGI too much. Like, I'll crap on it a little bit if it's bad, but most of the time I'm okay. Does it tell the story? Does it distract you from the story? Did it do its job?
Yeah.
That's more my feeling. But again, I had such a visceral reaction to the new one because I was missing the practical effects. If they had just been able to do that again, I think it would have worked better for me. And then I just wanted to talk a little bit on the shot design. I'm not going to go too crazy. I just noticed something.
Yeah.
They use split diopters. A split diopter, it's like a circular filter type thing that goes in front of your lens, and half of it's one.
Okay.
I'll share a picture in the socials that we post so you can get a visual. It's a circular filter type thing that goes in front of your lens, and it helps you change the focal plane.
Oh.
So you can keep something that's really close in the foreground in focus and something that's in the background in focus at the same time. They use it in a lot of classic old movies, but they used it in this movie at least twice. One of the scenes is where MacReady, Kurt Russell, appears in the doorway behind Fuchs. I think that's his name. We see Fuchs in the foreground and he's trying to figure out a test, how to test for the thing, how do we know who's human and stuff, and Kurt Russell's character is in the background. So as the audience, we're privy to both sides of that story.
Yeah, I like that better than like the rack focus, so then you can actually see. Yeah, that's really cool.
You as the audience get to decide who to look at what point.
Yeah.
Fuchs' back is to MacReady, so MacReady can't see his face. We can see his face. And then there's another scene where they use the diopter as well. So MacReady's going crazy. He's in the background holding everyone at dynamite point. Meanwhile, when someone is about to attack him, the other person is in the close foreground and you see a scalpel that they're hiding behind their leg. And the scalpel's really close in the foreground and Kurt Russell is wigging out in the background. So both are in focus at the same time.
That's so cool.
It's interesting that they made those choices. You don't see those shots often. It's kind of a special shot you'd use every now and then, but if you're using it, it's for a point. It's to help tell the story in a certain way. So I thought it was interesting.
Cool beans.
Yeah, it's cool. Let's see. I also had I've got 2 pieces of trivia I'll share. It's now tradition for British Antarctic Research Station people to watch The Thing at their midwinter feast every June 21st.
I saw that. It's so fun. I love that so much.
I'm like, it's cool, but aren't you going to get people paranoid?
How often do you think they play jokes like that on each other up there?
I bet, like, you're the new kid in the station. Wow, I'm so excited to start my research. And they're like, there's The Thing.
Yeah, just traumatize them.
Immediate trauma bonding. The other thing I thought was interesting was composer Ennio Morricone, who famously almost got a Razzie for the worst score, which is not earned.
That's so sad.
Music is fine. He had some unused music for this movie, and it was eventually used in Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight in 2015. So he kept music that many years to be able to make it into another movie. I think that's really fascinating.
Wow.
It's gonna be in pictures.
Wow. He's like, this is going to be in a movie someday, I swear to God. I was looking on IMDb and there was like revealing mistakes, goofs, like certain things. And one of them was if you watch when they explode the flying saucer, the camera tilts up and you can see the top of the backdrop that they built.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I also love that you can see the backdrop. You can see that in Godzilla as well, the original Godzilla. They're like throwing rockets at him and it's bouncing off the wall. You can see the wall shimmer as it bounces and stuff. It's great.
And then another one that's really funny to me that I pointed out before actually reading this is that when the blast happens and everybody hits the ground, the dogs just stand there like everything's fine. No reaction. No reaction whatsoever.
I also worked on something in recent years, a scripted series. You will have never seen it because it's on a random network. But they kept, I kept seeing the edge of the set and they kept telling me, oh, we'll never see it. We'll never see it. We're going to edit it out, crop it, hide it with special effects, whatever. I ended up watching an episode or two online and I'm like, they didn't hide shit. You can tell where the wall is being held up with fishing line and duct tape. Okay, that looks like crap. But maybe no one else would notice.
Oh my God. That's always the best when you find those little things and you're like, oh. There's also charges in the door of the greenhouse when they shoot it that you can see lighting up before they even take a shot. I love finding those. Those are my favorite.
Oh, or if you look on a car in an action movie and you see little dots where the bullets are eventually going to hit.
You're like, wait a second.
You're thinking, what
Hold
is
up
that?
1 second.
And they're hoping you don't see it beforehand. So, Tricia, thank you so much for joining me and picking some really fun movies to talk about. This has been really, really good. I mean, I'm just delighted.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited that I was actually able to do this.
Honestly, this is a lot of fun. So we may as well get a plug in for your film campaign and any socials you want to put out there.
Yeah.
So where can people find you or find more information about your movie?
Yeah, so on Facebook, we have a public group called Should I Claim I Still Have Mind Powers on Facebook. And then on Instagram, it's Should I Claim to Be a Movie?
I like that, yeah.
And then we also have a Seed and Spark campaign that's running until the 31st of May.
Okay.
The links you can look up on Seed and Spark projects itself. It's the Should I Claim I Still Have Mind Powers? Otherwise, if you look on our Insta or on our Facebook, the links are literally everywhere.
So for our faithful listeners, you can stay up to date with the podcast on our Instagram, which is Lights Camera Remake Podcast, or by following us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and or YouTube. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, sharing is caring, as with Tricia's film campaign and with episodes of this podcast. Also, Tricia's links and stuff, I'm going to put them in the show notes so it's easy to find. But yeah, search for her campaign on Seed and Spark. Find their Instagram. They have all their links up. It's very well organized, actually.
I will say my Instagram is called Tricia.
Got it. Sometimes we need to embrace our inner trashiness.
Yes, exactly.
All right, that's it for this episode. Next week, Erica will be back, and we're going to need to keep this podcast going at 50 miles per hour or we will explode. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in, and please go share Tricia's campaign. Show her some love, give her a follow on the socials, and support independent film. Thank you so much.